None of us can predict the future. There are no crystal balls. We don't know what is up around the bend for us. We can't predict loss or illness or other challenges that might show up for us. So the best we can do is make the best decisions we can in the time that we are with the information we have at hand. Today, my guest is my good friend, Colleen Feuling, and she is a senior home coach and real estate agent in the Carson City, Reno, Nevada area. And I'm very excited to have her on the show today. You know, she has been a trusted advocate for older adults and their families, specializing in real estate transitions that support comfort, safety, and of course, the quality of life. She had many years of experience in the medical field, and so she does bring that deep sense of compassion and understanding to her real estate world. Now, in August of 2025, Colleen herself was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, and the experience has given her a new perspective on how quickly life and health can change. From navigating daily life in a multi-level home while using a walker for several months, it deepened her understanding of the challenges many people face when their home no longer meets their needs. It gave her this firsthand insight that allows her to guide her clients with even greater empathy, practical knowledge, and care. So I'm just so excited. You want to make sure you stay tuned and listen to this episode of Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60. In today's world, older adults face major transitions like downsizing, relocating, or modifying their homes to age in place, all while embracing life after these changes. As a senior home advisor and seasoned realtor, Robin McCoy guides these decisions with care and thoughtful planning, helping create a vibrant future. Welcome to Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60 with me, your host, Robin McCoy. Colleen, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I am so excited to have you here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So Colleen and I know each other, again, through the Senior Home Coach. A few of our coaches have been on the show, and you are one of them. She and I have partnered together, roommates and all of that at some events, and I passed her roommate resume.
Yeah, that's right, because there was that.
There was that. So Colleen, again, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Ask away.
Okay. Well, you know, so Colleen is with, she is in the Carson City, Reno area, and she is a real estate agent. And she has always worked, if I understand it, you know, you've always loved working, whether it's a first-time home buyer or a senior and everything in between. Tell us a little bit how you got into this senior niche. I hate that phrase, senior niche, but tell me how you started focusing on that.
Yeah, well, I started, my previous career was in radiology, and I was always an advocate for my patients there, and I brought that into real estate, and the advocacy, the compassion for working with people. And what I found, a lot of older people don't necessarily have people that can help them, and I get very protective of people as well. And I actually have a friend that works in the senior community as well that it was her idea to really center on working with older people. And so I went and took the class to get my SRES. And I realized that was still just like scraping the top of things. Like it wasn't, it really wasn't enough to really do what I wanted to do. And so then finding my way into the senior home coach group was really, I'm so glad that I was found and that I was brought into that.
I know, it's almost like somebody found us and brought us into this group. And you know, one of the great things about it is that you were right when you said, you know, real estate has certifications, and SRES is the one that is the senior real estate specialization. And it has this, for those that don't know, it just has this high level idea of how you work with this community, and it barely scratches the surface.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and when we work with, and when we get this group that is a senior home coach group together, we are learning so much about everything from the mental and emotional and physical and, you know, logistical, all of those and what goes into serving this community.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I will say it's like in my case, I realized that that wasn't enough, and I started reaching out to the friends that I had in the senior community and started meeting with them and learning all that I could um, to know better how to equip myself to be able to help other people. And then I had a couple of clients that needed help, and this was before knowing the senior home coach group and how to help all those moving parts move forward. And now, yes, I agree that our group is, we're just full of so many professionals in different spaces that even, you know, just knowing realtors all over the place is so helpful. And then everybody else is just, you know, we learn and grow together and pick up little tidbits every morning.
Well, and that's it too. You know, I always compare, you know, the real estate agent is typically the hub in any real estate transaction, right? We know the inspectors, we know the, you know, the title people and the pest control and all those people. And we hold it all together to make sure the transaction happens. And that is the same role as a senior home coach. Whether you start out as, I mean, whether you're a realtor or something else, the senior home coach is that hub, right? Between the placement people and the senior communities and the realtors and the movers and all this, right? And so we become that project manager.
Yes. Yes. And then my health changed, and that is what actually gave me a different look at my own home, which I was already questioning my house, but
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's back up a little bit because in August of 2025, you were diagnosed with multiple myeloma. Is that how you say
yes,
that?
multiple
Okay, and
myeloma.
what is that? Tell us what that is.
So that is a disease of the plasma cells, and what happens, and there are varying degrees of this. Some people hardly have any symptoms at all, but it can take the calcium, it leaches the calcium out of your bones to create these lytic lesions, they're called, and then that in turn creates fractures, most likely in your spine, in your ribs. They can be in your long bones as well. For me, that's what was happening. I was in a lot of pain and not knowing why. I had even had x-rays done and nothing was showing up on regular x-rays. It took a CT to show, and I had multiple fractures in my ribs and in my spine. I had a part of my pelvis that had broken. It was so wild. And then that the calcium was getting stuck in the kidneys, so you can also have kidney problems. So my kidney function was at 40%, which I had no idea. They were able to clear that up, luckily, and that was not a long-term problem for
That
me.
wasn't piled on to everything else you've been going through for the last year.
Yeah, yeah. So I spent 9 days in the hospital and I was in such pain. And so I don't know, between myself and the staff, I hardly got out of bed. And that I lost my muscle strength tremendously. And so I went home with a walker and on pain meds. And so, like, looking at my house, like actually pulling up in the car and seeing those, whatever, 7 or 8 steps walking up to the front door was like, how am I
I
getting up?
can't do that. Right? I mean, wasn't that, you're like, how am I going to get up those stairs?
Yeah, I had to have my husband with me every time I went up the stairs. He's the only one that I trusted fully.
Sure.
You know, I have strong enough kids, but I wasn't sure.
that you wanted them to have to catch you.
Right.
Well, and and that's, I mean, that's the kind of the point, why, and I'm grateful that you're willing to speak about this personal thing to everyone. But this
Yeah.
is what, we talk about how you can't predict the future, right? We can't predict loss. We can't predict health challenges. We can't predict changes in things. And one day you realized you had multiple fractures in your body, that you had an illness, and all of a sudden your house didn't suit you.
Right.
It was detrimental to
Yeah,
you. So
all
what
of
did
our-
that, I mean, because that's like one day you come home from the hospital and you're like, holy crap, I've got 5 steps I've got to get up.
Yeah, and
Get in.
I basically lived in the living room because it was very difficult for me to get upstairs where our bedrooms are, where the showers are. I did have to get up there, obviously, to shower. But even that part of it was difficult. My parents came to visit and stay with us to help, and my dad is handy, so he was able to put in grab bars. So we have grab bars in the shower now, in the bathroom downstairs, and we found that grab bars are prettier than they used to be, and so they're you can hide a
Let's
toilet
not
roll.
forget the design and the decor choices.
Yeah. Yeah, but trying to get into a bathtub, I couldn't do it by myself. Well, that's ridiculous. Like I don't want anybody helping me
Yeah.
to do that.
Well, and I can imagine, right? I mean, because even as your friend and not living right there with you, but being your friend and hearing about this, it felt completely overnight. I
Yep.
had just spent, just a few months before we were in Florida together.
Yeah.
And you got sick, but, we're like, oh shit, pardon me. How did she get, it's like a cold or whatever. And then
Yeah.
next thing we know, you're telling all of us that you've been diagnosed with this, and this railroad train just went, like, for the last 9 months, it's been insane.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I was on pain meds. So that goes into the business part of things because this happened while I had multiple clients in different stages of contracts and were looking at houses, and I couldn't do any of that anymore. And so, luckily, one of my first visitors in the hospital was my broker and his wife. And, she had food for our family, and he was offering, how do I help you to manage your clients and get them with somebody else that can help.
Yeah.
And luckily I work with a lot of really great agents, and I've already built a lot of really good relationships. So being able to tell my clients, I can't work with you right now. You're going to be now working with these other people.
Yeah.
That was a thing in itself.
Yeah. Well, and it's when our life changes, and again, there's no predicting this most of the time, and as, and we all both work with seniors, and as these things happen, right? Whether it's illness, whether it's the illness of a partner, right? So your husband's life changed, right? And how he had to adapt and make sure that you weren't trying to get in the bathtub by yourself that was going to cause you to fall, right? So he's probably having to police and monitor you, because I know you. So he's policing and monitoring you. Your kids have to kind of step up a little bit, and they're going to have to find their own lunch. And, parents come in to assist and all these things. How do you, as the person, right, the person that is not well, handle all of this and learn how to ask for help, accept support, and make those adjustments?
Yeah. Well, part of it was I physically couldn't. My body was so weak, and looking back at pictures now and seeing me just laying on the couch like a wet blanket. I mean, I had no choice.
Yeah.
It was really most important was my clients and getting the right paperwork to get other agents on contracts with me.
Right.
That was the thing, and then releasing um, the me being available,
Right.
and having that releasing that control.
Yeah.
Um, and then at home trying to make decisions, but I tell you, pain meds are a thing, and man,
They will, yeah.
what it does to your brain. And that's, that was what made it easy to go back to the clients and say, you don't really want me right now. I'm not,
I'm a little nuts right now.
I didn't drive for 4 months.
Yeah.
I had to have somebody with me all the time. Yeah, that was,
Well, and that's kind of what, when Colleen and I were talking about what we would talk about on this episode, and we all talk about as we're aging in our homes, right? We talk about our homes and what, are we going to be able to live there as long as we want to, right? And because as we age, our bodies change and maybe they get ill even before we feel like we're aging, right? So, but you said you were already starting to think about your house and now you
yeah.
come home on a walker. And how does that change the way you look at houses, whether your house for yourself or
Right.
homes for your clients? What do you see now that maybe you didn't see as clearly before?
Yeah. Well, even with the initial consultation, which I'm meeting clients right now. So I'm still not working with anybody 100% yet, but I can do things from home. So meeting with people on Zoom, and when we're looking at what their next home might be, helping them to recognize those things. Just like, I know that you're not there yet, maybe. You feel fully equipped right now for stairs and all of that. But it can change quickly. And how long do you want to be in this house? Maybe it's just finding a home that at least has a primary suite on the first floor. Something so that you have the bedroom and the bathroom available to maybe anybody that might need it at some point, really.
Right. So, I mean, I had a friend who had a hip replacement at a younger age, right? But she had a hip replacement and everything's upstairs,
Yeah.
right? They have one of those because her elderly mother lives with them and they've got one of those stair chairs, which
Okay.
I don't really care for. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And we won't go into that now.
Yeah.
I just find them a little anyway, but fortunately they had that. And so she was able to get up and down the stairs without having to use the stairs, right? So,
Yeah.
but most people don't already have a multi-$1,000 piece of equipment in their home.
And for me, luckily it was a temporary thing, but
Sure.
you don't know that for sure. So that's something else that you do want to at least consider.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I look at it and so these same clients are downsizing. Well, they're not, they even say people think we're downsizing, but the house isn't getting any smaller. We just want it all on one level.
Yeah.
Right? They want the same amount of space. They're keeping most of their stuff. It's not, they're not 70. I think they're probably in their 50s, but they want it all on one floor so that they can age into it. So there's some of those folks that are kind of planning ahead too.
Yeah. And just looking at how many stairs are going up into the house, or can you add a ramp if you need to? Because that was something we looked at our house. There's no way the ramp would have to go like all the way across the street to the other house for that, for the angle that would be needed.
Excuse me, neighbors,
My
when you got a
God.
drawbridge or something so the cars can get by. I just, then the HOA's got to get involved and you got all these things, right? But see, even that, you walk up and there's like, is there one stair? Or are they, I was at a house yesterday and it's an old, old house. But that first step was probably 12 inches, it was 10 inches high. I measured it.
Oh, geez.
10 inches is high when you're trying to take a step.
Yes. Yeah. Is it something like for me, we have a railing, so I hung on to the railing, but not every house has that. And, we have steps that even go into our living room. And those steps were actually deep enough, and there are only 3 of them. So I could actually get the walker up on each step because we don't have a railing. And my dad and I spent so much time looking at that, and my mom and husband too, but the 2 of us especially were like, how can we make this easier for me? But I knew it was a temporary thing, and I didn't want to do anything too permanent either to the house. And luckily I could just use the walker on those steps.
We Are One Heart is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to bridging the gap between the needs and resources of low-income seniors and veterans. Rooted in compassion and love, our mission is to provide housing, living assistance, and access to critical resources that ensure dignity and support for the elderly in underserved communities. At the heart of We Are One Heart's work is the belief that every individual shares a common humanity, a heart connected through love and care. We are committed to creating a future that honors those who have shaped the past by offering programs and services that enhance their quality of life. For more information or to donate, visit wa1h.org. That's wa1h.org. There's that too, right? Is so many houses just one step. It's just one little step. You come into an entry and you step down into the living room, or, off to the left or something like that. Or you have this and it steps down into a living room or a dining room or something. And one step can be treacherous.
It sure can. Yeah, because even like my leg strength was still so weak, and I had home health here too. I had physical therapy and occupational therapy. A social worker came to visit me. I mean, I got to see all the people.
Yeah, you are very, very popular.
Oh, and a nurse too. That's right. I had weekly visits. The social worker was the other person that only came once, but everybody else was weekly.
Well, and I'm sure it's, they're there and they're making sure, first of all, that the house is safe, that, you have a means of getting, and the people around you are there and can help. I mean, once you get into a more, senior environment, right, where maybe both parties are in their 70s and 80s, the ability for one to care for their spouse or partner can then become an issue. Right. And can he or she help you up that one little step into the kitchen or down that one? Yeah, right. And so I think as we are aging and we start thinking about what, where are we going to be for the long term? And I just kind of go back to what you said at the beginning. You said, I was already starting to question my house, and now I'm really starting to question my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've already made the detachment of it. Like I could go ahead and sell it anytime and be okay with that. The rest of the family is not there. But
but you're like, y'all, you didn't have to like sleep on it downstairs for the last 4 months because you couldn't make it up the stairs.
Right. But my husband did because I had to get up every 4 hours to take pain meds. And I mean, I was like, we likened it to a newborn getting up during the night for their feeding and diaper change. Thank God I didn't. but getting up and going up those steps to get to the bathroom and then having to take my medications and keep all that on track, he was right there with me.
Well, good for him. You got a good one there. You got a good one there. And again, we go back to, of course, your husband is going to be there for you. However, is he going to be capable? Because if you're both 80,
right, is
he capable of taking care of you in that manner? My dad got, was sick with cancer. He got pancreatic cancer, and he got very, very ill. And, Joyce, they were knowing that he was, what was going, there was no question on where what path this was taking. Mm-hmm. My stepmom, Joyce, needed a hip replacement. So she went and got that before so that she could help take care of him and they're both in their 80s, right? Joyce is very, very active. They were both very active. But she knew what her responsibility in this was going to be. So she went and made sure that she got her hip replacement before he got sicker. Right? And and that's planning.
That sure is.
That's anticipating.
Yeah.
That is being in control of a situation, right? They had already moved from the big house to the not as big house, now down to the right house, right? So they'd already, that was all great planning.
Yeah.
And,
sure.
And whether you're 80 and something like that happens, or you're your age, and I don't know how old you are, but, you've got to do some planning. We all need some, at this point, I'm sure it hit you like a slap in the face, like, oh my gosh, we need to do better.
Yes. And that has opened conversations, and that goes into so many different things. I mean,
sure. I'm sure wills and trusts and funeral arrangements and, what if this went worse? What if this was worse?
Beneficiaries are on things. I mean, these are things that we talk about anyway, but I just had to do something at the credit union yesterday, and I was like, okay, so let's just make sure again that there are people, more than just one beneficiary, and other people who can get into these accounts and that kind of thing too, because you don't know.
You don't know. And I think that's the whole key of this conversation is, you just don't know. You can't predict. Mm-hmm. And you can only make the best decisions that you can make with the information you have in any given moment.
Right.
And so making whatever decisions you can now, and not saying I know a lot of people like to say, well, I don't want to think about that because then maybe it'll happen. It's not like you're manifesting illness. You're not manifesting illness. You're not manifesting tragedy.
No.
All this is bound to happen in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying everybody's going to get diagnosed with what is it, multiple myeloma.
Right. No.
And yet somebody could trip on a throw rug and break a hip, and now what are you going to do? Or some strokes and tripping on the front step. I tripped in the garage about a year ago that I hit that ground so hard that my husband and my stepson came running. They heard it.
Geez.
I hit it so hard.
And falls hit harder every year we get older.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We don't bounce back the same as that little toddler. No. all day long.
No. I mean, in fact, right now I do have some people, and she fell again, and now she has broken another vertebrae in her back because she's just, and she's this big anyway, and so she's just very frail, and she fell. And now that, now she's on a walker with a cane. I don't know how you do that, but she's got both.
Oh, geez.
Just trying to get around, and they're in their 80s. So, I just think it's planning ahead. And I think, like you just said, this has brought up conversations that while you talk about it intermittently, I'm sure it became very much more intentional to make sure all the ducks are in the row.
Yes.
And your kids are a little older now too, right? I mean, they're in what?
Teenagers,
Yeah. So they know enough to say, okay, this is where the stuff is that mom and or dad need. They can understand that you need to go get these things because we're at the hospital and you need to go get them. So they're old enough to understand what that means.
Yeah. But having those conversations is so important too, because they don't know. They don't know what is going on except for what we present too. So same as anybody, same as if you're the aging adult and you think your kids know, and maybe I'm your kid, we have to have very intentional conversations so that everything can move quickly and swiftly and easily when something happens. Because that's the thing. It's like, something's going to happen. So let's be prepared for it.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great, maybe that's what we need to call this. Something's going to happen, so let's be prepared for it. I mean, no one's getting out of here alive. That's been kind of my mantra lately. And I don't know why, but it sounds a little creepy or morbid, but no one's getting out alive. This is death and taxes, right? The two things that are most assured in our life. And so what do that day that you don't wake up, whatever you left the day before is what everybody's dealing with.
Right.
Right? So whether it's tomorrow because I have a stroke or 40 years from now because I'm 102, there's going to be that day. And so I think it's making those plans and the documents and making sure people have access to accounts, like you said, and just all the things that become apparent when you become, when you get an illness that changes things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I even look at my business differently now too, and in personal life, and really making the intentionality of splitting the two. When I'm with my kids and at their events or whatever, I don't want to be on the side doing contract work if
if at all possible, right?
Yeah. And sure, it's still going to come up, but really being with who I am with right now fully.
Awesome. Well, what's one thing that you might say to someone that maybe we didn't mention, but you would love to get that point across, just based on what you've been through over the last year and where you are now in that, and what the rest of it all looks like?
A lot of people want to help, and they don't know how to, and maybe you don't even know how to ask for help yet, but take the time and really think about that, because you have the ability to get the help that you need, and being very specific with people in that space. If it's rides that you need, find that person that can be there regularly with you. Take somebody with you to every single appointment. That is huge. And it doesn't matter if you are on pain meds or not. But you as the patient, I coming from the medical field and working over 20 years with people and hearing stories, but when you're that patient and you hear certain words and you just hang on to that, and you need somebody there with you to hear the rest of the conversation. And taking notes and all that. So I think that is so important, just really having people with you on those appointments.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I went on, when Joyce couldn't make it or something, I went with my dad, or I went with both of them, because it can be a very emotional time. You could be on medication. You are thinking one thing, and I mean, there were conversations that Dad and Joyce didn't even hear.
Yes.
That I went, you didn't hear them say that? They said this. And I'm like, no. So, I mean, if for no other reason than to catch the things that just are missed
Yes.
or ask
And
the
you don't,
additional question.
you don't need a life-altering event to do this. Start today. You know, I mean,
Huge.
it doesn't hurt to have somebody with you. It
No,
can only,
it never does.
No, it can only be better.
Better. All right. Well, Colleen, thank you so very much for spending some time here today and being so transparent and honest about, your life and your family and how you got through this. My heart goes out to you. We've been, like I said, we first heard of this and we were all like, what?
Yeah.
So
you sent me soup to my house. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Yeah.
Well, I cannot, that's the only thing that when somebody is really sick, that's going to make them feel better is soup. So,
Yeah, and we have 2,000 miles between us, so
yes. We can make anything happen these days, can't we?
Absolutely. Well,
all right. Well, Colleen,
it's
thank
been
you so
amazing.
very much. I appreciate your time, and I cannot wait to hug your neck again in real life.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Robin.
Absolutely. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60. Make sure you continue to share all the information here so that we can keep spreading the good word. We'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for joining me on Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60. I know that time is our greatest asset, and I appreciate the time that you spend with me. If you're finding the information on this podcast useful, please subscribe to the channel on your favorite platform so that you never miss another episode. Don't forget to go to our website where you will find additional resources, downloads, and coaching programs. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60.